Damage picks up right where we left off, with Enterprise continuing to get its ass kicked like a mime at a biker rally, only to have the Xindi suddenly stop without explanation. Not that it does them much good, since everything is effectively broken now, even thrusters. In Trek terms, that's the ability to crawl away and lick your wounds. But at least they're alive, it's just they're completely at the Xindi's mercy. And mercy is normally not a trait associated with people who build planet-exploding weapons.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle. Good. Your heat has made you powerful.
Well, the reason for this random act of kindness is that Degra and Snarf called the attack off. The union of the Xindi species is starting to fracture, with the reptilians ready and willing to err on the side of blowing things up, and the primates and arboreals are on the side of, let's find out more. Well, Degra's got just one thing to say.
I'm reporting you to the captain!
Meanwhile, you see the reason why it's called damage. It's a wonder Enterprise is still in one piece, and many are dead. The warp coil needs to be completely rebuilt from scratch. Weeks' worth of work if they have the parts, which they don't. Tucker's extremely grim over this situation. Even his favorite thing in the world can't get more than a frown and a sigh out of him. With the conflicts taking place amongst the members of the Council, it's agreed that the Aquatics will transport Archer for questioning. But instead of going to the Council, they dump him near Enterprise. If Enterprise is like this, you can imagine how Archer looks, given that he can't go to a pacifist monastery without a severe beating. T'Pol offers him a towel, but her hand is shaking. That's due to a subplot that is bizarre to say the least. She's jonesing for some smack. I'm not joking. She even assigned repair as a priority to the cargo bay where it's kept. The 3 episodes that make up this trilogy are not only interconnected, but each episode has a primary focus on one of the 3 main characters. Azati Prime was Archer's, his destiny to form the Federation, his immediate need to protect Earth, and his hatred that both are getting in the way of what he'd rather do, explore. Damage is T'Pol's story. It's connected to her isolation from last time, and her and Tucker arguing about her ineffectual leadership. Same old, you might think, but rather than undermining or being critical, Tucker's comments have lost the harsh edge that they had in his words and tone. Even when upset, there's just no venom to it anymore. He is actually trying to help her command instead of undermining her attempts to do so. The reason that she's struggling is because of that addiction. More on that later. For now, it's time for a meeting around the air hockey table. Archer wants them to get defensive capabilities back online before another attack could be launched, even Reed thinks that it's unlikely they'd stop short of destruction just to destroy them on a whim. I mean, come on, Archer. No need to be Chicken Little here. The sky isn't falling. Never mind. There's a grim atmosphere to be sure, though. Even Mayweather's constant cheerfulness has descended to a mere unquestioning optimism, as he assures Hoshi without hesitation that this mission is going to end in victory and their triumphant return. I realize this is an old and worn-out meme, but my immediate thought on rewatching this was that Mayweather reminded me of the Iraqi information minister, standing in the midst of the trashed Enterprise, claiming everything would be fine, and somehow, even though they couldn't handle a few Xindi ships, they'll be able to overcome their ultimate weapon. Mayweather will be issuing reassuring platitudes as they stand blindfolded in front of a Xindi firing squad, assuring them that at any moment they're going to be rescued from death by a surprise team-up by Green Lantern and Gandalf. While Archer and Tucker get to work to ensure that Enterprise is fixed to the best of their abilities, it is quickly apparent that that won't be good enough. Just in time, they run across another ship that has been damaged by all the anomalies in the Expanse, and they link up to trade equipment to help each other. Archer's got a lot of this stuff called Trillium D, the thorough yet gentle laxative. Actually, it shields against anomalies. Enterprise had picked some up, but they couldn't actually use it because it thoroughly messes up Vulcans. It causes them to go insane and eventually die. And naturally, that's the smack T'Pol's been injecting into herself. That's what's been affecting her. It's been releasing pleasing emotions, but it gets in the way of her ability to control them. Not a good thing when you have superhuman strength and you're the second in command during a crisis. Well, the thing that they're going to need most right now is a warp coil, obviously. Otherwise, they're not going anywhere. But the captain obviously won't give it up for the same reason. Archer then takes the next desperate step and offers to trade their more advanced technology to get that. Part of his need to do things that he doesn't think is right, but has to do them because they are necessary. I mean, after all, remember that one of those times that he refused to do exactly this thing was when a species was dying out. I thought you said you shouldn't give away technology to prevent extinction. No, I said I shouldn't give away technology to prevent your extinction. But that's not good enough. So the two depart, and it's time for T'Pol's shower scene. But she's not alone. Oh yeah, time for some hot, steamy action. Obviously, there's only one thing that can make this scene any more erotic. As you might expect, this was all just a dream. The zombification probably gave that away. T'Pol is jonesing so bad for some of that Trellium D that she puts on a suit and heads into the unstable cargo bay to get some. After nearly getting killed, she gets her rocks and turns them into drugs. Man, imagine if the crew knew about this. We got this to protect ourselves from lethal threats, and instead you're using it to get high. Yeah, you've officially forfeited the right to criticize me for eating a Polish sausage. Meanwhile, in spite of Mayweather's overbearing cheerfulness, Hoshi has decoded the info from the pod Archer came in, and they find a rendezvous scheduled for 3 days from now. However, in their current state, they can't get there in time, and, well, that's the only real chance left now of saving the Earth, especially when you see Archer sitting in what is either his ready room or one of the buildings from Fallout 3. As Flock shows up to drop off Porthos, Archer broods quietly, but this time it's because of grim realization. The damage for which the episode is named shows that actions matter, that things like cheap drama of the ship rocking and shaking and then being fine the next week are giving way towards something more realistic. And that's part of what Archer is now facing, a reality that he does not want to accept but knows that he can't deny. As discussed last time, with the knowledge of Earth's situation, Archer has shifted across the season from Duchess the Giddy Lunatic towards awareness that he, God help us all, is humanity's last line of defense. That failure means everything is over. In TNG, the Borg forever changed Picard. From Q-Who, when he saw how unready they were for some of the things that were out there, to Best of Both Worlds, which awoke aspects of humanity that he clearly thought he had evolved beyond. The Xindi experience has changed Archer as well, and he doesn't like that. That's probably the reason he picked himself to go on that mission, and the question that must be on his mind again right now. If he had done things differently, could they have avoided this? Could he have been spared having to give the order right now that he knows he needs to give but doesn't want to? But it's all just speculation. In the here and now, Archer knows the only chance now to save Earth is to reach that rendezvous. And in order to have the means to do that, he must get that other ship's warp coil. And since they won't trade for it, he's going to have to take it by force. As despicable as that act is to Archer, as much as it may go against everything to steal from and potentially endanger those people, he has to resort to the same behavior as those pirates that he looked down upon not so long ago when they first entered into the Expanse. He'll be leaving them with food and some Trellium to help them get home, but he knows they still might not make it. Because of him. And as T'Pol lays all that out for him, we see that for once, it's not character inconsistency, but intended character development. It provides a double meaning for the title. Not only has the experience damaged the Enterprise, it's damaged Archer himself. Meanwhile, there's a confrontation between part of the Council and an alien from the Sphere Builders. These aliens are not so named because they created Jolene Blalock's implants. No, they are the ones responsible for the big spheres that are screwing up space all over the Delphic Expanse, although she refuses to admit to that. They take her to task for the events of Carpenter Street, and I'm fully in agreement. Anything they did to help create that piece of crap deserves many a harsh word. Her response is typical of how they're used to dealing with the Xindi, because they've been regarded as practically angels for their aid over the years, so she thinks she can just act lofty and they'll all fall into line. But it has the opposite effect on Degra, who seems even more willing to accept Archer's word since he's offering to back it up with proof, while she'll just stand around and act all high and mighty and tell them what to do. Meanwhile, the command staff work on their plan of attack for Operation Mugging. They can use the transporters to get over, but Tucker will have to unhook the coil before they can beam it back. And in the shape it's in, even that alien ship could pose a risk to Enterprise, so they can't hold back. T'Pol doesn't agree with this, though, and loses it until she finally smashes her iPad. Well, with that, she figures she should go see Phlox over her old I'm a crazed and manic addict problem. T'Pol's scene justifying her behavior only exposes the silliness of it. A Vulcan who lives suppressing emotions deliberately and focusing totally on logic takes a lethal poison to experience emotions. Combined with the anti-AIDS episode they did, it's as if the Vulcans have been written by the people who made 80s after-school specials. So Phlox gives her something to help ease the symptoms and then sends her to the bridge so she can take full command of Enterprise during combat. This should be fun.
Are you going to discuss this with the captain?
This is between you and your doctor.
And, of course, anyone who happens to ask. This is Phlox we're talking about. So with the fate of humanity resting on a junkie, they head over while the aliens continue to pound on the poor Enterprise. But T'Pol doesn't want to damage their weapons and leave them defenseless. But finally she discovers a power junction and shoots that instead. I guess that's a more acceptable target. But it does allow Tucker to get at the shielded warp coil so they can beam it back. Casey Biggs isn't happy, and Archer doesn't take it well, but Tucker assures Archer that it was the right thing to do. Next time, we'll see if that's worth the price. Post-episode follow-up. Annoying character goes to T'Pol, especially for her scenes in sickbay where you want to slap the stupid out of her. Final score for Damage is 10 out of 10. It's not only an important step towards resolving the story arc, it's got strong character elements and good action. It looks great and is well put together. Slow and pondering when it needs to be, quick when the action requires it. Damage is the strongest of the 3 episodes, probably because it's the only one where Archer doesn't give a speech. Next time, the meeting with Degra and Tucker's turn to be the focus of events.